Hello, Jino here. Before we start, just wanted to let you know that I'll be jumping in from time to time to correct some of the turtle facts that I so confidently and erroneously spout throughout this episode. Cowabunga! But in other versions of the TMNT canon, Splinter is a man.
Oh.
Who
Really?
turned into a rat.
Turned into a rat?
They Stuart Littled him.
Stuart Little. Yeah, he is, yes! You get it, Victoria, you get it!
Hi, and welcome back to Nostalgia Club. Today we're talking about a little something you may or may not have heard of. It's called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. To my left... Wait, I haven't introduced myself. My name is Michael. I'm a human being, not a turtle. To my left, however... Oh, is it a turtle? Who's that?
I'm Victoria, and I guess I'm a turtle now. Actually, turtle is among the animals that I have compared myself to frequently.
Well, you're wearing green, so...
Oh, yeah.
you know.
That was not intentional on my part. But when I was young, I used to often compare myself to a turtle because they can retreat into their shells when they're scared. And I was like, I wish I could do that when I'm like anxious or stressed out by social situations.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Yeah, I was a shy kid.
And to my right is someone who's not wearing green.
Cowabunga, dude, it's me, Jino, and I'm so excited to talk about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Ooh!
And they're, yep.
And that's about it.
That's all I got.
Gino's underselling it. I came to Gino yesterday and I was like, gosh, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1990, I'm sure glad I watched that movie before the 2007 TMNT animated feature because that one goes wild. And Gino was like, you don't know the half of it, and then proceeded to introduce me to the lore of TMNT.
And we'll do that for you too, dear listener. Although, some clarification, we're going to be talking about two TMNT movies, the 1990 live-action one and the 2007 CG animated one. We're not going to touch on any of the new stuff because I haven't seen it, and we're not really going to touch on any of the animated shows, unless, Victoria, have you seen it? No.
Nope.
None of us have seen the animated shows. My experience personally and my nostalgia for this franchise is specifically the 3 live-action movies, the trilogy, and the CG animated 2007 movie, and the original comic series. I don't have context for anything else.
See, it's wild that you have to be like, quick disclaimer, I only have knowledge about these sets of, of the official canon. Or it's like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is so, I guess it's really huge and it's been going for so long and it has so many instantiations of itself.
Yeah, it is heavily merchandised.
I did hear one of the latest animated movies that came out was pretty good.
Yes.
So I've been wanting to see it.
Things,
yeah.
Mutant Mayhem, I think it was called.
Reboot number like 7 or 8 or whatever.
300!
People love these turtles.
I love these turtles.
Because they're great. Yeah.
What do we do? Do we do vibe checks first?
Vibe checks?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you to talk about the original comics collection since that was like the beginning of the Turtles as well as your beginning with the Turtles.
I do want to touch on that. But before we do, I want to get to know both of your history and vibes with the Turtles. Because both of you, from what I gather, have very little history with the Turtles.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Well, for me, it's like I'm aware they exist. I was aware of the general attitudes of the 4 different Turtles characters. And there's Master Splinter, their rat sensei.
Yep.
And April O'Neil, the reporter who exists and wears a lot of yellow. And the Foot Clan, the street ninjas, the Foot Clan, and their the villainous leader, Shredder, who's just got a lot of edges, man. He's just sharp.
This is another entry in our rat with job.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of mouse with sword, it's rat with honor.
Rat with honor.
Rat with sons.
Rat.
Rat with family.
Rat with family.
Yeah.
What about you, Victoria?
I actually was really into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when I was a kid.
Wow.
Egads.
Yeah.
I've been led
But
astray.
Speak on this.
I definitely don't have as much knowledge as Jino. So I think I'm like right in the middle of Jino and Michael in terms of knowledge about the franchise. Specifically, I'm really, really nostalgic for the 2007 movie.
Okay, excellent.
We probably watched that a bunch of times because I remember it pretty well. The weird thing is, if you asked me like a week ago before I watched it, I probably couldn't tell you much of what happens in the plot, but the aesthetics and the animation style are very clear in my mind. And as soon as I started watching, I was like, oh yeah, I remember like there's this guy who has like statues and they come alive or whatever. And there's like a whole thing. But yeah, I really liked the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm pretty sure I've never seen the 1990 film, but I think we watched the second one because the title sounded really familiar, like Secret of the Ooze. I was like, we've definitely, I say we as in my brother and I, just sorry, that might have been confusing. But I'm pretty sure my brother and I watched the second movie at least. It's possible I watched the first one, but I really don't remember it all. But I remember that second one just from title alone. And I'm pretty sure we must have watched a couple other Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies over the years. My brother had like a Leonardo action figure.
Nice.
I think he might have had a Raphael one. So we would like pretend to be the turtles a lot, like when we're just like playing. So I think in the scale of like things that I liked as a kid, TMNT was like maybe a step down from Power Rangers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Like I was really, really into Power Rangers, and I was also into TMNT, but more in terms of like the characters and like pretending to be the characters and like living in the world and stuff like that.
Aesthetically interested, but not like lore interested.
Yeah.
Question about the second movie. Would you have seen this on like TV or like rented from somewhere probably?
Probably from the library.
Okay, yeah.
Like it would have been a while after. Obviously, I wasn't born when it came out. But like if I had to guess, I'm pretty sure we probably watched the 2007 movie first. Probably still on DVD because we didn't really go to the theater very much when we were kids. So we probably got it from the library. And we were like, that was awesome. And then anytime we were at the library and we saw other TMNT movies, we'd probably check those out too.
Yeah. I think it makes sense to me that the second of the original 3 live action movies is the one you most likely have seen because that's the one that is the most family friendly and the most likely to be aired on. I personally, I don't know if this is true, but like I believe personally that it would be the most likely to be aired on like children's programming or be available at a library because the first live action movie is pretty edgy in a certain like goofy way. It's kind of dark.
I was surprised by how much they curse in that movie.
Yeah.
Raphael's third spoken word is damn.
Yeah.
Just kind of said casually.
Yeah.
He says it 3 times within the first 15 minutes.
He like yells it at one point,
Yeah.
and there's a wide shot of the city and the echoing damn.
I personally think the first movie does an excellent job of capturing the tone of the comics. And it is with this most recent rewatch, because the last time I saw these movies, I was young enough to where VHS tapes were widely distributed still. The 1990 movie does an excellent job of adapting the first arc of the comic, but the sequel really heavily tones down the violence so much that they never take out their weapons.
I did read that on Wikipedia that in order to tone down the violence, they only fist fight people.
Yes. And that kind of goes along with the tone and the jokes. So that's the movie that like the Parents Association would be like, this one's the good one. This one you can see, even though I personally think it is objectively the worst one. That's just
They're only
me.
beating people to a bloody pulp. They're not hacking and slashing them to a bloody pulp.
Like the first movie, the fight scenes are they're goofy fight scenes, but there's a lot of dynamism and energy to them.
Yeah.
Like they're flipping and like crashing through ceilings and
There's no blood. They're not actually hacking and
there's
slashing
no blood,
people to pieces.
but every impact feels painful.
Yeah.
The second movie, they're literally like, there's a whole gag where they find an inflatable clown like toy and then they like bop them with the inflatable clown toy and they're like, this is fun. I'm fighting ninjas. And me as a kid was like, oh, okay. Take out your nunchucks. Come on. Hurt some people, please. Okay. Plot summary first?
Sure. Plot summary first. I, in fact, got a hold of the script for the 1990 Teenage Mutant
You
Ninja
got the script?
I got the script. Here's the opening line. It's exterior establishing pre-9/11 New York. The Twin Towers stand beautifully in the morning sunlight. over Manhattan and the wider New York boroughs.
Is this real?
Somewhere far below, the Ninja Turtles and the Foot Clan do battle. But for now, the Twin Towers, immovable... No, I'm kidding.
I was like, Michael, you've stopped reading from your phone.
No, I'm kidding. No, it's just the opening shot is like Manhattan. It's New York. And you see those giant Twin Towers standing right there. And you're like, oh, okay. I remember. But it's frankly fantastic.
It's very much a 90s aesthetic that's trying to ask you, remember the 80s?
But you get April O'Neil doing a voiceover, and there's a fun pairing of shots where you see somebody swipe a wallet from someone's waistcoat and pass it off to different people, just like different teens, and you're like, what the heck is going on? And April O'Neil's doing this voiceover of like, a rampant crime wave across the city. There's an actual line where she says, it's apropos of nothing. It's just in the voiceover where she says, instead of getting better, things have actually gotten worse. And I'm like... that should be memed. But then we see like these teens passing off like a bunch of stolen gear to these people dressed as ninjas in the backs of vans. And there's a bunch of funny bits of someone like turning around one moment and then they turn back and their TV's gone. Like a
really
delivery
fast.
driver, like, all right, I got this giant pallet of stuff. And he walks back to his truck and it's all gone.
Does a great job establishing tone and what to expect. The opening monologue is so goofy and redundant, but it's delivered with such seriousness that you can't help but be worried for the city.
And the music's going ham with like the die-hard levels of do-do-do.
Also,
well, it really is, like, the overall tone of the movie, like, it does take itself seriously for a premise that's like 4 mutant turtles fight crime in New York.
Yeah. Also, my favorite line of that opening monologue is, unfortunately, the only place we can turn to is the police.
Yeah!
Or something, I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, unfortunately, we only got the cops.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
And the cops are portrayed as like totally incompetent throughout the whole thing. They just don't want to have to like do their job.
And they're bribing the press.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wild amounts of we'll get to Shredder's speech and like the weird cultish subversive organization of the Foot Clan, which I love. Fantastic, almost like social commentary in a way.
Yes, it's great.
But yeah, April O'Neil is going out to her car at the end of a long recording day, and she gets jumped by some goons that are trying to steal her stuff. And she is rescued in the dark. We don't get to fully see them yet by who else but the Ninja Turtles. Raphael leaving one of his sighs behind and uttering his
catchphrase.
Damn.
Which I think is pulled straight from the comic, too.
Really?
Yeah, that scene, a lot of scenes and also framing is pulled from the comics. Like that, there's a scene later where Casey's in the burning antique store, another scene pulled from the comics. And he kind of makes this like pose, like this kind of Han Solo pose with his like, what is it, hockey stick out?
Yeah.
That's his introduction frame where he kind of leaps out. He's got like a cloak on. He leaps out of the Foot Clan. He makes that pose, except he's not jumping. He's not jumping in the movie. He's jumping in the comic. And I saw that and I was like, hey, cool.
That's pretty awesome.
That was something you mentioned, actually, that the 1990 movie follows very closely the first story arc of the original comics.
We're sort of jumping around a bit, but the two biggest differences is that the original comics don't have a bunch of like kids operating with Foot Clan. It's just Foot Clan, as far as I can tell. Danny is still a character. Danny's around. I don't remember exactly what he does, but he's around. Also, April is not a reporter. She's a scientist working for Baxter, who is another villainous person who's sort of operating at the same time, but they kind of cut that whole section out. And the Turtles are completely aware of who Shredder is basically the entire time. And their goal is not to save New York. It's to extract vengeance for their fallen master. It's not a story about being superheroes. It's a story about getting this guy. It's about killing this guy because he wronged Splinter. So it's very much like when they defeat the show, they're like, we did it. We've restored our honor. He's dead. Da-da-da. Back to the shadows. He's dead. Da-da-da-da. We did it. He's dead. It's great. It's so edgy. It's so stupid. Obviously, Shredder comes back. In the comics, after his first defeat, Shredder returns and burns down April's pawn shop. You can never permanently kill this guy. It's a whole thing. Back to the plot. I don't remember what happens next.
We've only done the intro.
Well, we do get introduced to the Turtles after that point, and they're in their underground sort of hideout, as I recall.
Yeah.
It's a fun sequence, and we get, I mean, this is the movie where you have human beings in big rubber suits with like animatronic facial features with the eyes and the mouths.
Mhm.
And there's like certain scenes where you'll see them talking and it's like, they're doing their best. And then there's other scenes where you'll see them make 3 very like specific facial expressions in a row
Yeah.
that are like surprisingly nuanced for the rubber suit. And you're like, whoa, I can only imagine like how many like different control mechanisms or heads that they had.
Well, I do know one thing about them. They were Jim Henson's last project.
Really?
Yeah. And he was quoted, I think, as saying, these are the most complicated animatronics I've ever done. And I think he passed away before the movie was done or came out. Actually, Jim Henson saw the movie before he passed, and he did not like it. He thought it was too violent. He probably would have liked the second one more, which is dedicated to his memory. That's why they're so good, because the master had a hand in them.
Well, that makes sense then, because they're deeply impressive.
Incredibly. Also, like, really flexible.
Yeah.
Like, the stunt actors doing flips and full, like, cartwheels and 180s in the air and stuff. No problem.
And I believe it. Well, I kind of have to. They're physically there.
Yeah. Really impressive. This was, I think, the most expensive, fully independent film of its time. Highest grossing, not most expensive. What are you talking about, Jino? Honestly, even that fact I'm not totally sure about. The point is, it made a butt ton of money.
This was fully independent?
Fully independent.
Well, I guess that
Whoa.
explains why it's good.
It was unable to find distribution for a long time, and New Line, which at the time was like a really small indie distribution house, stepped in and kind of saved it. But it cost them something like $2 million or $20 million. It cost them a lot of money
Wow.
to do this independent production, but it looks really good for what it
Yeah.
is. The sets are immaculate.
It can hold its own with
Mhm.
like any other movie of the time, I feel like.
Yeah. But essentially, there's a lot of hijinks with the Foot stealing stuff, and April trying to uncover the Foot clan for what they are, which is basically she has all the information. You just can't convince the police to let her do it.
Yeah.
Also, there's a tiny little subplot where Raphael, who is, I guess, the main turtle of this movie, which
Yeah.
surprised me in retrospect. Raphael is like the main turtle with the character arc. Leonardo is in his way, and then Michelangelo and Donatello are like comic relief in the background.
I love them. They're great.
Which is they're very cute. They're just like doing completely nonsensical like teenage things in the background to remind you they're teenagers.
Yeah.
And the Raph's in the front like brooding.
There is like
He's
a
so
very
edgy.
He has that conversation with Splinter at like 15 minutes in, and it's like all a single shot. I mean, granted, they are just like puppets and animatronics at that point, but it's surprisingly affecting where Splinter's talking to Raphael about his like the manifestation of his anger over his feelings of like alienation and like isolation from the wider world. And like, don't forget that, you're not alone in this. You have your family and you have your brothers and you can like talk to it. And it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like, I believe everything that's happening here. I believe every word of it.
Splinter's so good in this movie.
Fantastic. And I think the original, did all the Turtles and Splinter have their original voice actors like from the cartoon?
I don't know.
I think Splinter did.
All I know is that the character actor, the guy in the suit, and the voice actor were separate except for one of them, but I don't remember which one was.
Wow.
Every turtle had a whole team to like make the turtle come to life. But no, I don't know if it was the same as the cartoon. Though the movie does take a lot of inspiration from the cartoon, with the original comic author's blessing too.
That's great.
The original comic authors, Eastman and Laird, I think at least one of them has stated that this is the best adaptation that's ever happened
Wow.
of the TMNT story, and that they're the most proud of it because they were also heavily involved. They both were offered cameos, and I think only one of them took it because the other one didn't believe in cameos.
Principled.
Yes. But basically, Raphael storms off on his own. He meets Casey, who's like this hockey guy vigilante who beats people up with sports equipment. That's kind of his whole stick in the comics
he's
too.
also going after, he doesn't know it's the Foot Clan, but he's going after these teenagers who are stealing from people, and he's trying to be sort of a superhero in his own way.
Yeah, trying to beat up the kids.
Yeah, and so he basically, like, Raphael is going after some thieves, and then Casey is then going after Raphael because he's like, why are you beating up these people? And he's like, dude. And then they agree to work together? Kind of.
They
kinda
become like
spar.
friendly rivals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Sorry, I'm
it's
getting
a fun
I'm
introduction.
getting movies confused.
it's okay.
But Casey becomes involved with the turtles as a result.
He's around and then he kind of just gets dragged
Yeah.
into it.
He's kind of a deadbeat.
He is.
Yeah.
And everyone can tell.
Yeah. And he's played by, what's the actor's name who played him?
I can look it up or want us to look it up, but he's in a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And he like fully commits to the role too.
Elias Koteas?
Sure.
Great job, Elias. You did great.
That's his name.
But the mixing of these two elements, the TMNT and the foot, happens when they meet April. They save her from some muggers or something like that. Oh, yes. Raph rescues her in the subway.
Yes.
Yes,
Takes her back.
Now the Foot Clan is after April because she's been on the news literally being like, they're out there. And so Shredder's like, get rid of her. So the Foot Clan goes after April while she's at the subway. Raph rescues her. And then he's like, I don't have anywhere else to take her. So he takes her to their underground lair.
And leads the foot right to Splinter.
Yeah.
And all the turtles are like, I guess sleep over at April's. And while they're gone, Splinter is kidnapped and then manacled to a wall for the rest of the movie in the most devastating way possible. So the turtles are kind of like loose in the world now, not sure what to do. The Foot Clan attacks them again. Raph like wanders off on his own again and gets ambushed and completely beat up. They have like a multi-level apartment into antique shop fight, and the whole antique shop burns down, and it's very emotional, and it's just like the comics, and I love it. Just like the comics. And so April and Casey and the turtles retreat to the farm, which is also just like the comics. And they're at the farm, and they kind of have like a reflection of like who they are and what they want to be. And Donatello starts doing machines just a little bit. And Raph wakes up, and Leonardo's like, all right, let's try to get the gang back together. And then they have like this force vision of Splinter.
Well,
Which
Leonardo goes to the forest to meditate, and I think somehow he taps into a mind link with Splinter or something.
And it's an interesting fulfillment of earlier in the movie, like at the beginning, after they finish their mission, Splinter's like, all right, everyone meditate. And
They don't want to.
Michelangelo's in the background, like ordering a pizza.
Yeah.
So it's a nice fulfillment of like,
Yeah.
even though Splinter's gone, it's like Leonardo's like, no, we can do it. And they all meditate and they like, psychically commune with Splinter.
I'm so sorry. I just need to go back to that moment that Splinter meditates, because he does this thing where he like starts meditating and he like breathes out, but he sounds like he's dying. But Michael, I need you to do it because it sounds like when you imitate like an old man, like your old man voice.
I don't remember it. Is it like...
No, he's yeah.
I mean, on the subject of Splinter dying, when they do have that force vision of him,
It sounds like he's
dying. He's like,
That's what I thought too. I was like, he's gonna like, because he's basically like, this is my final words to you, and they're like so sad about it, and I was like, I guess he's dead.
Yeah, like they're all crying in front of this fight. You're like, did he just pass away off screen?
But
Like
no, it's
on
like-
screen, off screen?
I guess he meant my final words in this psychic phone call,
Yeah.
specifically.
I mean, you could say that he is perhaps accepting that he could die. Maybe he's on the verge. I mean, he's not doing very well. He's been chained to a wall for like
That's true.
a while.
Yeah.
And ultimately, when they realize they're not getting anything out of him, Shredder is like,
Yeah, Shredder's
"Kill
like,
the
just
rat."
kill him.
Yeah, Splinter hovers on the doorstep of death, just back and forth this entire movie.
Yeah.
Both like literally, but also like in the mind of the viewer because we're never quite sure what's happening to him.
There's also, while all this is happening, there's a subplot with Danny, as you mentioned, who's the
He's April's.
preteen or teenage son of April's boss.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting side plot because he's a part of the Foot Clan's like larger.
Recruitment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, I just want to talk about the Foot Clan for a
let's talk about
second.
the clan.
They operate out of the same derelict building that Spider-Man and Green Goblin fight in the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie. At least I'm pretty sure. So the Foot Clan seems to be, in lore, it's like this criminal organization that maybe was active in Japan years ago.
Yeah.
And now it's cropped back up in New York. And so you have the Shredder and his like second in command and maybe a few other folks, but it's mainly, it seems like those two who are like the old guard.
Mhm.
And they seem to be recruiting from like the youth. delinquents, disaffected youth.
Just a very general, the youth.
Yeah. And at first I was like, this is hilarious because it shows them in their like den of sin, but
Yeah.
it's like they're skateboarding and they're playing video games.
Smoking cigarettes.
And
Gambling
being,
with the poker.
Yeah, the peak of teenage rebellion, truly.
And at first I was like, oh, this is hilarious. This is like peak kids movie. But then it like moves into what must be like the next stage of their indoctrination, which is you can see like older kids, like kids who aren't just like preteens or young teens, but like older teens training to be Foot Clan like soldiers. They're like training in karate, and like all this machismo is like very present.
Yeah. There's also hints of some sort of mass like money laundering or like product redistribution because they're stealing stuff, and then there's like an assembly line of kids like opening boxes and taking up stuff out, and I assume like cataloging it. So,
yeah, they gotta make money somehow for all these kids. Yeah.
They justify how they're buying all these arcade machines.
Yeah.
And there's like an interesting like Foot Clan guy. Who's the guy? He's Shredder's second in command.
He doesn't really have a name.
He's
Maybe they mention his name once or twice.
Yeah.
He's mostly just
His name is Tatsu.
He's mostly just really unhappy.
He's mostly really unhappy, and he's just sort of like in charge of the boys who are the foot soldiers. Interesting patriarchal undertones to this whole thing, which is it's just a thing to keep in mind.
That is the theme of the movie, is like, what is it like to be a family? What is it like to have a complex relationship with your father?
And the
Your
theme,
rat dad.
Yeah.
the theme does get weaker throughout the movie.
Yeah, well,
Until the very end, where they're like, all the kids are like, "What do we do?" And Casey's like, "Is this a family?" And the kids are like, "You're right, Casey. It's not a family. We're just a bunch of kids in a warehouse."
and yet it's also like, if it was going to come from anyone, they probably would have believed it from like
The coolest guy they've
the
ever
coolest
seen.
/ deadbeatest guy.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah.
You're right, Casey. We don't want to end up like you.
He like points to Tatsu, who he just like knocked unconscious on the floor. He's like, that's your family. But yeah, it's just interesting because even then Shredder gives this whole speech after they've captured Splinter, and he's like, it's this sort of double speak thing where he's like, you've all been left behind by society. You've all been discarded. And, you know, you're going to basically like, you've found a new family now and a new purpose. And now we have a new enemy. And it's the people who have really been left behind and discarded by society. These mutant creatures. And you're like, this feels eerily relevant. Interestingly fashy undertones.
Yeah.
Even though it's just a kleptocratic scheme for him, I suppose.
This movie gives a lot more depth to the Foot Clan than there ever was in the comics. More in-depth than the Foot in the first arc specifically. I know the Foot gets more characters and drama and karai and backstory. Don't come at me. Because in the comics, they're just a joke. It's literally just a joke, a play off of the hand from Daredevil.
Really?
Oh.
Because TMNT is a spoof of Daredevil and a bunch of other superheroes. The canister of goo that the turtles get into and like become mutants, that's the canister of goo that hits Daredevil in the face, giving him like blind magic powers or something. I'm pretty sure it's Daredevil. I'll look this up. We'll fact check this. 1 second.
This is fascinating. I
never knew that. I mean, definitely when watching these movies, I was like, oh, there's so many familiar tropes for sure. Like, it's almost one of those things where you're like, I don't even know, like, now in the timeline of media, like, what is inspired by what anymore, you know?
Yeah. TMNT is an explicit parody of Daredevil.
Oh,
the
okay.
origin story, like the frames, the panels that tell the turtle origin story, literally feature Daredevil. He's there. He's just like it's like a different guy, but it's like the same like action that made Daredevil happen. And then the canister like deflects off of his face, makes him Daredevil, flies through the air, hits a kid holding a bunch of like turtles in a glass bowl. The glass bowl shatters. The canister and the turtles fall through a sewer grate and get everywhere. The ooze gets everywhere. And then Splinter's there and he's like, huh. Splinter is a play on Stick, who's Daredevil's mentor. The Foot is a play on the Hand, which is Daredevil's enemies. And then Shredder is just like, they were like, we got a guy and he's sharp. And there he is.
He really guessed poorly, that Shredder. He's like, if I'm just the sharpest ninja guy around, I'll be able to poke anyone. Oh no, I have a new enemy. They're Dang it, they're naturally armored. They're turtles. I shouldn't have picked sharpness for my big thing.
Yeah. But it's kind of amazing how this literal parody grew into something so pervasive and like powerful on its own that it doesn't need Daredevil anymore. Daredevil's gone from the Turtles now.
That's so like, I guess not weirdly, but it's like very inspiring where it's just like somebody followed his passion. Like, I got this great idea.
I'm pretty sure Eastman and Laird literally just drew like a Ninja Turtle on a napkin or something. And we're like, haha, funny. It's funny because they're slow, but they're ninjas. Wait a minute. I sense a multi-billion-dollar marketing. No. Basically, the movie ends with the Turtles returning to New York. Casey infiltrates the Foot, and with the help of Danny, they rescue Splinter. The Turtles, separately, fight like 1,000,000 Foot ninjas for, like, no real reason. They get to the rooftop where Shredder is waiting for them. They fight Shredder and fail. And then instead of in the comics, where they realize they need to work together and do a team attack to take Shredder down, in the movie, Splinter just shows up, absolutely, literally crushes Shredder, or rather knocks Shredder into a garbage disposal truck. And then Casey murders him with the garbage crushing machine.
Yeah,
Which
I was
in the
like,
cheekiest
whoa.
way. He's like, whoops.
Whoops, crushing a man with 100 tons of force.
While like 100 witnesses watch.
Yeah.
Because like all the kids, all the like Foot Clan like recruit trainees are there just like, oh,
my surrogate father, no. And the Turtles are happy. They give each other a big hug, and the police show up, and they're like, and that's the movie.
Can we talk a little bit about the flashback sequences where Splinter tells his story of like...
It's so funny. It's just like a little like rat puppet just like dancing.
against like a black backdrop.
Yeah. It's so
a
dramatic.
black backdrop.
Yes.
And like sometimes not that, and it's just like comped in people or like puppets. Just little tiny tiny Splinter.
Me. Like, I know it's so serious and it's taken so seriously, but I could not stop laughing at like the baby turtles who become like bigger turtles as they're growing. And then you have Splinter telling his backstory where he's like, I watched my master train and I just mirrored his movements. It shows
puppet rat.
Like it shows his master like doing martial arts moves, and then it cuts to like a rat just kind of going like
tiny punches.
No, it's fantastic, and that is the original Splinter origin story.
I mean, I believe it. It's just so funny in live action.
But in other versions of the TMNT canon, Splinter is a man.
Oh,
really?
Turned into a rat.
Turned into a rat.
They Stuart Littled him.
Stuart Little. Yeah, he is, yes. You get it, Victoria, you get it. It's worse.
Except, actually,
that is a verb, Stuart Little.
Because Stuart Little is a boy who looks like a rat.
Yeah, and
He's
Splinter's
not
a man
rat.
who looks like a rat. In other versions of the canon, and it's worse. It's objectively worse. It's better if he's a real rat who learned ninjutsu from watching his master, who was then assassinated.
Well, they imply in the movie that he was like slightly more sentient or whatever.
Yeah.
But that the contact with the turtles and a bit of the radiation like heightened him a little bit more. Because he talks about how his mind expanded and all this.
Yeah.
But that's freaking hilarious. Because it's sort of divided into two parts, his backstory. He tells one to April and then he tells the rest to Danny when Danny's like feeling disaffected with the Foot Clan and like becomes good. But he talks about the trials and tribulations of the man who would become Shredder. Oh, what's his name? It starts with an O.
Orokusaki.
Orokusaki. And like how Orokusaki and Splinter's master, I think Yoshi?
Yeah.
Yes.
How they were like
Yoshi.
Yeah, and they were like fighting over the same woman, and then like she loved Yoshi and like convinced him to go to America to like break off that whole situation, and then like Orokusaki like hunts them down and like murders both of them, and then Splinter like fights him, and I was like deep in the paint with like the backstory here, and like when they show like the visual depiction in this like surreal black backdrop scape of like Splinter, who's still a tiny rat at this point, attacking Orokusaki. It's just the actor who plays Orokusaki holding a rat puppet to his face and like flailing around going, ah!
And then the permanent scars they left.
Yes.
When he takes off his mask and it reveals, like, the claw mark.
Can you imagine being a Rokusaki and having founded this, like, massive criminal enterprise, and then the freaking rat who bit your face, like, 15 years ago is back, but as this, like, giant mutant, and you're like, oh my god!
And he has giant mutant sons who are turtles.
I'd just give up.
Yeah.
That's like legitimately nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
Like a hamster that bit my finger once long ago is back to kick my butt, and he has a weapon.
The albatross on my back is a rat with 4 sons.
Yeah. And they're more of a family than you'll ever have. That's 1990 TMNT. It is so good in that it's so like B-movie camp, but it takes itself so seriously. I would argue it transcends that to become like a seriously... It's not like a great movie, but it's a good movie.
If it isn't already, it deserves to be a cult classic.
Yes. The conclusion is very weak. A lot of it doesn't make a ton of sense, but it's very faithful to the adaptation while also implementing a lot of the aspects of the Turtles that were made popular by the TV show to make it more visually and aesthetically recognizable for a child audience.
Yeah.
And I think it does a really great job at that. It also has only one piece of original music in the entire movie,
Wow.
which is the rap song at the end. Every other piece of score was taken from a different thing.
Huh.
Which is why, like, some of it repeats just again and again and again, which I think is fun.
That's incredible. I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Also at the end, some of my favorite lines. First of all, I'm pretty sure it's Raphael, but he says bitching.
Oh, yeah.
Splinter says cowabunga, which is a very iconic TMNT phrase. But then he says like, haha, I made a funny. And I was just like, Splinter, you're great.
I
Keep
love
being
Splinter.
you.
Ah, what a great time.
And then there were, what, 2 more movies?
There were 2 more live action movies. The second one, which is just Shredder's back and he's made more mutants. It kind of does the thing that like
He got out of the garbage truck?
Yeah. How did he get out?
he got out of there. He's a little squished.
Okay.
But he's fine. He's a little squanched, but he's okay. and he gets his hand on the last canister of ooze, and he dunks it on like a wolf and like a rhino, a warthog, a wolf and a warthog.
Okay, yeah.
And he is like, now I have 2 mutants of my own. And then they fight the turtles, and the turtles are like, wait, but you're like us. The mutants are like, you're right. And that's kind of the whole second one.
Is that Secret of the Ooze? Is
That
that
is
Yeah.
the
Secret of the
Victoria
Ooze.
song?
I don't remember it at all. I just like the title is so familiar to me that I must have watched it, but I seriously don't remember anything that happens.
Yeah. It sort of takes from the other like villainous arc of the first like comics arc. Shredder is one side, and then the Baxter Industries or whatever that is the other side. They make little robots called Mousers, which are basically little like dinosaur robots that are supposed to deal with New York City's rat problem. And then that's when they become into conflict with Splinter because he's a big rat. And they're trying to eat him.
Yeah.
And it's a whole problem. And also I think he's responsible for the ooze or something. They bring him in, whatever. The third live action movie is time-traveling Scepter sends some of the turtles in April back to Japan
Oh.
and then trade places with Japanese like samurai, and then Casey has to help them around modern-day New York. And that's kind of it. That's kind of the whole thing. There's not really like a villain or a plot or anything. They're kind of just like, we're in Japan.
Huh.
But that is the reference that April makes in like, oh, I got this uniform the last time I was in Japan in the 2007 animated movie, because that animated movie is an indirect sequel to the live action trilogy.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, like, watching the 1990 film and then the 2007 film right after was really great.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, I've never watched the 1990 movie where it's, like, the true origins of, like, the Turtles, and then getting to watch something that was familiar, but then getting, like, the additional context was cool.
Yeah.
And then, like, them making reference to, like, oh, the Shredder's dead and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I hope it enhanced the experience.
No, it was
That's
great.
why I wanted us to watch both of
Yeah.
them. Yeah. The 2007 movie is bananas. It's bonkers.
But it's awesome.
It's awesome.
It's
It's so
freaking
cool.
awesome. There's so many shots where I was like, they're just so cool in this movie.
All I knew was that it involved the Turtles and they were in New York. I expected it to be like a reboot movie. I expected to see the Shredder and the Foot Clan and everything. And within like Within like a minute, we have Lawrence Fishburne, who's just doing the opening narration.
Shout
of
out
this
to
movie.
Lawrence Fishburne.
Shout out
Yeah.
to
The
Lawrence
the voice cast actually for this movie is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
It's pretty great. You got Jean-Luc Picard as this sort of villain, maybe misunderstood.
As an old man.
Yeah, they do the almost like the Spider-Verse thing where it's
Yeah.
like, long ago, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles
Wait,
defeated their...
as Winters?
Yeah,
No, that was Patrick Stewart.
I said Jean-Luc Picard.
Oh,
I was being... I
sorry.
made it funny.
In Victoria's defense, you said Jean-Luc Picard and went, yeah, I know that guy.
The
actor.
I was like, what?
Yeah, it's been a long week.
Apologies.
No,
okay.
you're good.
To be fair, I only said Jean-Luc Picard because I forgot Patrick Stewart's name.
That's so. And then Xavier from X-Men or whatever. Professor X.
It also has Sarah Michelle Gellar as April.
Oh, really?
Nice. Nice.
Mako is Splinter,
Hey.
who was Uncle Iroh
That's
in
right.
Avatar. And I got really emotional about that.
That was really...
He does a great job.
I was like,
sweet.
aw.
No, Splinter traditionally has been played by some really great actors. Or at least like very well-known like martial arts people. I think Jackie Chan was Splinter at some point. I think he's Splinter in the new movie. I'm honestly not sure.
That's cool.
But very iconic.
Adds weight
Adds weight.
to everything Splinter says and does.
Dear listener, if you haven't seen or don't remember the 2007 TMNT movie, you gotta watch it. Because how else will you learn about the ancient Mesoamerican army that tried to conquer the world using a space laser alternate dimension portal, which instead turned their generals to stone and left their commander immortal to wallow in grief and regret for 3,000 years?
And also shunted 13 extra-dimensional monsters into the world.
Which are, and not established in the movie, but established in like behind-the-scenes information, supposedly inspiration for all cryptid sightings.
Oh.
Because their names are like Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, like Yeti, Jersey Devil, the little one. That's the Jersey Devil. They're supposedly, this is never like established in the movie, but they're supposedly all cryptids.
Wait, I have one question. And maybe it was just because I wasn't paying enough attention. But the 13th monster is not like the tiny Jersey Devil monster.
I got confused about that
Because
as well.
Raphael fights that one, and I was like, oh, that's the 13th monster because he fights that one, it escapes. And then he fights Leonardo because they're having like issues. And then the Foot Clan and the generals capture Leo as their
Made up 13th.
Yeah, made up 13th monster. And so I assumed, because at the end they're like, we got to find the 13th monster. And then the Foot Clan shows up with like a giant other monster. And I was like, wait, how?
It's incredibly poorly explained. They mentioned earlier that they have 2 left, but then immediately afterwards, one of the generals says, we cannot let them find the 13th monster.
Okay, that's why I was
So,
confused. Yeah.
So the establishment that there's 2 left is immediately overwritten by like, oh, but we got to worry about the last
because the
one.
other
I
thing
think it's
was
really
the
confusing.
timeline of this movie is like Winters, who's the main general guy, he awakens his brothers and sister, and he's like, okay, we gotta find the 13 monsters. And then only a day passes, and they've already found like 8 of them.
Is that
there's
a day?
There's like a huge montage sequence where they're like capturing monsters and the Foot Clan's helping them. And
All in a day.
yeah, because
Gosh, I thought it was like weeks pass.
I thought it must have been at least a week because that's so many monsters. The only frame of reference you have for the timing is because the first monster that shows up, the turtles fight that monster and they almost destroy like a whole building. It's like a building under construction.
The news reports.
So the news reports are like, this just happened. And then like they keep talking about it. So I was like, either they're really hyper focused on this one building attack for like a week, and then later on it confirmed it's only been a day. Like Raphael's like, do you remember that monster that showed up yesterday? We had to fight it. And I was like,
Wow.
what?
The plotting for this movie is loose at best, and you're really not supposed to think about it, and they just sort of barrage you with cool visuals and edgy brother fighting to sort of like help you forget.
The visuals are fantastic.
Oh, they're amazing.
And for me, the shining star of this movie is the character conflicts.
Oh, yeah.
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 Because I love the initial, I mean, we haven't really done a proper plot summary. But the initial premise is like all the turtles are sort of fragmented because Shredder's dead. Leo's been sent on sort of like a solo leadership training mission.
It's pretty vague. In order to become a better leader, he has to go to a remote place in South America.
Yeah, and then he decides to
cartel.
stay there.
Alone.
But then
it's
he
training me
decides
to be a better
stay,
leader where I have no contact with anyone.
And April shows up because she now owns some kind of like shipping business.
It's incredibly vague. She's in charge of a thing that does stuff.
She looks for like ancient artifacts for people.
Yeah.
For billionaires.
I think it's a continuation of how she owned an antique store. And then third movie, the way she acquires that like time traveling scepter is like she goes to like another like antique shop or like pawn shop or stuff. So that's kind of always been her MO is like going to places and getting old things that are actually very powerful magical things, but at first sight are just like a stick or a statue or 5 statues for the billionaire.
Meanwhile,
I gotta say she upgraded though, because that first movie she's got a tiny, it's an okay apartment that gets absolutely trashed and burned down.
I mean, she's like girl bossing. She's a CEO.
By the animated movie, she's got like a penthouse suite.
Yeah, and Casey's there too.
And Casey's conflict is that April wants to settle down more, but he's not sure if he's ready for that. But
and
they don't
resolve it.
They barely, apparently in initial drafts of the movie, April and Casey had a much larger role, but they ended up cutting it because it distracted too much from the Turtles story. So,
which, you know, they have to also balance that with the mostly parallel plot of Ethan Winters acquiring his 4 best friends with the help of a now mercenary Foot Clan that just sort of operates for hire.
Yeah.
Sorry, back to the initial premise. Like, so Leo's off on his solo mission, and meanwhile, the other turtles have become really fragmented because they're not fighting crime anymore, but they also like can't really do anything without Leo.
They're adults with jobs.
Okay, this was like rewatching this now as an adult struggling to be a freelancer. I was like, And they talk about like the housing market, and I was like, no.
they talk about the housing market crash in 2007.
Yeah.
And the movie was being made like before that.
Yeah.
So they basically predicted the recession, which is wild. But if you think about the timeline, they are like adults with jobs now. Because they were 15 in the first movie.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
And then at least
they're
a
not
year...
teenagers anymore.
Yeah, they're not teenagers anymore.
That's why they had to call it TMNT.
Yeah, they're adult mutant... They're not ninjas anymore at the start of the movie. So they're adult mutant...
Turtles.
Employee turtles. Adult mutant freelancer turtles. Here we go.
Yeah, so Donatello is doing IT support, which is very funny. He's basically like, is your computer plugged in? Okay, that would probably be helpful. And then... Michelangelo is doing birthday parties as like a mascot.
As himself.
It's basically just himself, but with like a giant cartoony turtle head. He's called Cowabunga Carl, and it's so depressing.
You feel really bad for him. There's a
bad
cut scene where there's more like Michelangelo Donatello scenes, and there's a cut scene where he's driving back from the party.
Oh yeah, and then some guy like sees him. And he has to pretend to be like an animatronic.
You saw the cutscene?
Yeah.
Yes!
It's because I got TMNT on DVD from the library, so I watched a couple of the special features.
Yeah. And then Donatello
he
apparently
also
has
gets
control.
really beat up.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like, it's like an extended scene of him at the birthday party where the kids are just like...
wailing on him.
It gets them where you feel really bad for him. It's no longer like funny slapstick. It's just like, oh, this poor man.
Yeah, like Donatello's like, you good? And he's just like groaning on the ground in like a fetal position. And you're like, Mikey, no.
Yeah. But Donatello has control of the city's like street lights. Like stoplights.
Yeah, and that one. So in that initial draft, Donatello is not doing IT support. He's basically helping Mikey with his birthday party business. He's like on a headset with Mikey when he's at the birthday party. He's talking to him in the car, and then he can like see all the cameras. And so he sees this guy looking at Mikey, and he's like, dude, like you're not supposed to drive without your head on because people are going to know that you're a turtle. And so Mikey like has to like put on like a really fake smile and pretend that he like waves really robotically to pretend like it's all a suit, and the guy is just like, what?
It's great.
And yeah. And then Raphael is sleeping all day, but it's because at night he's doing vigilante stuff as the Night Watcher.
He's Batman.
He's basically like a cross between like Batman and Spider-Man.
He's got like an Iron Man suit,
Yeah.
Spider-Man chains, and a Batman demeanor.
Yeah. His helmet, I will say, makes him look like Shrek.
Oh, you're right. Like when Shrek's wearing the armored helmet.
Because it has like two little like flashlights
On
or
the
like headlamps
sides.
on the side.
Yeah.
And the shape of it is literally like Shrek's helmet from...
I hate that you said that. I can't unsee it now.
I mean, his proportions are also very Shrek-like.
Yeah. So I thought that was very funny.
I do think it's rather funny how his disguise is supposed to disguise him from everyone in general, but it's also supposed to, like, hopefully disguise him from his brothers. But, like, anyone who sees him can see, like, that's not a human hand.
Yeah.
That's
He's not
3
shaped-
big fingers.
He also still like his
He's
like
built like a
body
turtle.
armor is molded around his shell. So there's a very I guess like if you're looking from far away, it could be like, is that a backpack? But like no, it's
Yeah.
like Casey fights Raph and immediately knows it's him. Leo fights Raph for like 10 minutes and doesn't know that it's him. I mean, maybe he's just like caught up in like
In Leo's defense, though, they do often fight aliens
Yeah.
in
That's
the TMNT
true.
canon.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so Leo could just be like, I don't know, another alien
yeah.
doing stuff. Who knows?
Also, it's like raining. It's a very dramatic rain fight scene.
It's so dramatic.
Yeah. Anyway, so April asks Leo to come back to New York. At first, he refuses, but then he decides to return just in time for the 13 planets to align for this 3,000-year-old ritual. Winters has he's awakened his generals, and then they're gathering monsters, as we talked about. The Foot Clan is helping them. He's hired Shredder's second in command, Karai, and she's now leading the Foot, and they're basically just hired to look for the monsters, but then the generals will actually go and capture the monsters.
Mm-hmm.
Then it becomes mainly like character conflicts between the brothers. Leo's back, and Raph doesn't like that because he feels like Leo abandoned them, and he's like, I just want to do my own thing. Splinter refuses to let the turtles return to the surface and fight crime until they're back to being brothers again. And so that's also a conflict that's like pushing and pulling.
Classic TMNT conflict.
Yeah.
That's the triangle right there. Raph, Leo, Splinter, just all mad at each other.
Oh, sorry. Back to I think it was in the 1990 film. There's a moment where like Raph and Leo are about to start fighting, and then Donnie and Mikey look at each other and they're like, should we go to the kitchen? And they're like, yeah. It's
Like they're so used to it by
they're
now.
just like, yeah, they're about to fight. We should get out of here. Like, I love their dynamic so much. I forgot how much I love their dynamic.
Yeah, it's really
I mean,
nice.
the dynamic between all the characters is great, but it's very clear that it's like Mikey and Donnie are like really good friends, and then Leo and Raphael like fight all the time. So they're just like close in that way. Like they're close in the way that they have to argue all the
Yeah,
time.
it's a very realistic sibling dynamic.
Yeah.
And then you have Splinter watching his like, what is it, Golden Girls?
Oh yeah, he's watching Gilmore Girls.
Gilmore Girls. Is Golden Girls a real show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, with Betty White.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wrong show.
Anyway, so it all culminates into this one moment where, like we said, Raphael fights one of the monsters because he's doing his own thing now. And he runs into Leo, who has this really sick silhouetted shot where he's standing on top of the roof and he's like looking down and you can only kind of see his eyes and like his mask like fluttering in the... Anyway, I just thought that was awesome.
All his time in South America, the only thing he learned was aesthetic posing.
I sent you to South America to work on your aura.
You want to get up real high with the moon behind you.
The funny thing is, though, when he's in South America, he's like always wearing like a poncho and he's like hunched over like an old man because he's like hiding the fact that he's a turtle. That shot to me is like seared into my brain because it's, I don't know. So then that's when Raphael and Leo have their big rooftop fight in the rain, and
You are my brother, Anakin.
yeah, literally.
I
Leo
ate
kicks
pizza
off.
with you.
Leo kicks off Raphael's helmet and finds out that it's his brother. And then they have like a real brother fight where like Leo's basically like, you shouldn't fight when you're angry. But Raphael, that just makes him angrier. And then it gets to the point where like Raphael breaks Leonardo's swords And
he kind of like scares himself when he does it.
yeah, and then he realizes like, oh shoot, like this has gone too far and freaks out, starts running away. At that same moment, Leo gets ambushed by the Foot and the generals and he gets captured, and Raphael turns back when he hears Leo screaming and sees him get taken away. The Turtles have to launch a rescue mission with April and Casey, and it's like this big giant fight where they're just fighting like 1,000,000 foot soldiers, but also weirdly sometimes the Foot just stand there and let them like pass. It's kind of funny.
You gotta acknowledge that the Foot have at this point been fighting the Turtles for like 5 years.
That's true.
And they've never won once. And so the Foot are like, oh, man, these guys, we're getting paid, but like, come on.
That's true.
Also, during that scene, there's like, because it's like the 3,000 year whatever is happening. There's a vortex over Ian Winter's tower. But like, I guess it's supposed to be like really storming and whatnot. But the only indicator that it's really storming is that the trees in the surrounding like courtyard are blustering in the wind like crazy. But the way it looks in like the dated animation is that it looks like somebody took like the whatever proper term would be for it, just like the
like a grab tool.
Yeah, like the grab tool or like the particle like variance tool, and just cranked it up 1,000,000,000%, so the leaves look like they're just flailing around in place like crazy. It's wild. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, they didn't want to render all that rain, so they're just like, I don't know, make the trees wiggle.
Also, the antagonist's name is Max Winters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why did I say Ethan Winters?
I don't know.
That's a thing.
Ethan Winters sounds like a thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to look this up.
The...
Watch this be something like super embarrassing or whatever, and I just like totally...
Sounds like from a video game.
That's Resident Evil.
Resident Evil.
Okay, yeah,
there we go.
Her.
But Ethan Winters from Resident Evil has actually lied to his generals. The generals initially thought that the portal was going to open up and unleash an army that the generals could use to conquer the Earth. But actually, Ethan Winters from Resident Evil is trying to put them all back into the portal.
To the Shadow Realm.
Back to the Shadow
It's
Realm.
supposed to make them mortal again.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want to be
break
here.
the curse, yeah.
Please let me die.
Yeah.
the quote-unquote villain's grand plan is just to die.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a fun, honestly, I really liked it as a kid and I still like it.
Yeah.
It's a great 180 that isn't like it isn't just dropped on you.
Mm-hmm.
Like by the time it happens, you fully understand why he's doing it and you sympathize with him 100%. You're like, yeah, that sucks. I would also do this.
Yeah, like it's his greatest regret.
He's been around for 3,000 years.
Yeah.
He's just real sad.
He's been ruminating on his greatest regret for 3,000 years.
Well, also, like, I guess leading multiple empires and stuff. So he was having fun. But
Yeah. You know what I was thinking at the end? I was like, I hope that he wrote his belongings to April. Because so they fight everyone and there's like the Foot decides to help them fight the generals, and then they push the generals into the portal, and then the Foot and Casey and April bring the final monster and they close the portal, and then Winters...
Sorry, did we talk about how the generals are like betray Winters?
Oh, yeah, they throw him off a balcony.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're like, we don't want to be made of stone and super cool.
At the same moment that they rescue
immortal.
Leo and Raphael and Leo make up for their fight, then it's like other family conflict flies into frame. Yeah.
And there's 5 of them, and there's Turtles and Splinter makes 5,
Yeah.
and it's like, whoa.
After they defeat everyone, Winters is talking to them, and they're like, so what now? And he's like, you know, April, I've had my eye on you for a while because I always knew that you would be the one to help me finish my plan to save the world or whatever.
You were so good at finding random artifacts that turned out to be magical.
And I was like, he should leave his, like, empire to her.
We go from like destitute reporter April to like billionaire CEO April in the matter of like 5 years.
Yeah. And then he basically like fades into dust. And you know what?
It's a little more extravagant than that.
Okay,
he floats into the air and starts
his
glowing.
His body starts glowing. He turns into gold dust.
It's like Fiona at the end of Shrek.
Yeah.
Except instead of like the curse being broken and true love being found, he just dies.
I thought
sweet release.
I thought his body was going to disintegrate, but then his armor would stay. So I was like waiting for the armor just to like clank to the ground, but that didn't happen. His whole body, armor and everything dissolves. And the one thing I remember from this movie is the scene where Mikey's like, he's in my nose. Oh, now he's in my mouth. I don't know why. I was just like, Okay.
I love Mikey's little quips.
I love
So
Mikey.
much personality.
I think Mikey is still my favorite turtle. He's just great.
Someone once said, someone much smarter and funnier than I once said, that you could perfectly distill anyone in America's personality down to who their favorite turtle is.
Wow.
It's like something about like, it's way more accurate than the Myers-Briggs.
Okay, so who's everyone's favorite turtle?
Oh, that's tough. I haven't thought about this in a while. As a kid, a lot of my friends liked Michelangelo. So I liked Michelangelo. But secretly, I liked Donatello.
Ooh.
Only because of his big swords.
He doesn't have big swords. You mean
Or
Leo?
not, no, Leonardo, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Leonardo,
How dare
I Freudian slipped myself because it's Donatello right now.
Okay.
Ah.
That moment that he like stands up in Winter's home or whatever, where he straps all of different swords to his shell, and he like stands up. That was pretty sick. The experience of me rewatching this movie was just me being like, that was really awesome. That was so cool. Yeah, I was just like freaking out about it. Anyway, sorry, continue.
No, that's it. Yeah, right now it's Donatello. Because, one, I think the staff is an underrated weapon in media, and I really, really like staffs. I think they're very cool, and they're very versatile, and they're a lot more dangerous than anyone gives them credit for. Also, he's just like, he's the least uppity, and he's the most chill. Like, Mikey is very, like, Mikey doesn't cause problems, but his antics cause problems. Donatello doesn't cause problems, like, socially, and doesn't do antics. He's the calmest turtle, and so he's the one I'd like to hang out with the most.
I would say your personality aligns pretty well with Donatello, too.
Thank you.
Vibes.
What about you, Victoria? Is it still Mikey?
I think it's still Mikey.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that says about me.
Victoria's constantly causing problems with all her antics. I just saw you shredding in here on the half pipe outside of the office.
We installed that specifically for you.
I did try skateboarding in college, and I was really bad at it. I also just never put in the time to actually properly
That's a very
get
Mikey
good at it.
thing.
Yeah.
There's nothing like eating in front of a tour group on your college campus. And here we have the liberal arts building, and there he goes. You could be just like him if you come here.
Yeah. I don't know, actually. I really like Mikey because I think he's really funny. I really felt for him in the 2007 movie when he comes home from a long day of work. Just like he had a rough day. Like he got beat up by kids, and he just wants to go home and like hang out with his family, but they're nowhere because they're not a family anymore. And he's like really sad about it. And I was like, no. So I think I just have a soft spot for Michelangelo, and he likes pizza.
He's the most genuine turtle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Raphael's character is really interesting to me, though. Yeah.
Fun Michelangelo. Not fun. Fun? Question mark? Back to Michelangelo. In some versions of the story, he's canonically the last turtle to survive. When the apocalypse happens.
That's so
When
sad.
the apocalypse happens.
It's a storyline called Last Ronin or something like that.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Yeah, and it's basically all the other turtles have been wiped out, and Mikey straps all their weapons to his body and goes on a vengeance quest.
Whoa.
Wow.
I also like nunchucks.
Yeah.
There's that great bit in the 1990.
Yeah, where they have like a nunchuck dance battle, essentially.
Where the Foot
Or
Clan soldiers
nunchuck
like
trick
Yeah.
battle. Yeah.
Mikey like spins it on his finger like a basketball.
Where objectively the foot soldier is doing cooler tricks, but you're just so flabbergasted how this big rubber suit is doing nunchucks at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the thing that draws me to Mikey the most is his positivity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Michael?
I don't know. I mean, again, my experience with the Turtles is much less than either of you. For the longest time, from what little I knew, I liked Leonardo because I like blue. And his
so
mask
fair,
is
yeah.
blue.
Yeah. You're wearing blue right now.
Yeah.
A lot of blue.
Yeah.
Actually, all blue.
Wow.
Well, my shoes are you know what? I'm not going to give a full description. But I liked him for that. And later on, I learned that he was apparently like the sort of default leader of the Turtles in a way. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Having learned more about him now, I'm less drawn to him because he does sort of like shoulder a lot of stuff in a way where it's like, all right, dude, take a chill pill. And I
He's very eldest child.
Yeah.
very eldest. Well, I am. And
He's an overachiever.
I think personality-wise, maybe I'm more like Leo. But I aspire to be as unbothered as Michelangelo.
There we go. Yeah.
I understand and like Raph more now, given that we've had two movies that very much feature his like struggles and perspectives. And he's like, It's fun to watch him facing down like significant odds, and he just like has an attitude over it, even though he's getting beat to absolute crap.
Yeah.
It's just fun to watch him, like, very true to character, be like, you know, what's your solution to this? I just beat up a bunch of your guys. And then like 100 more people show up and he's like, yeah, good solution. And I'm like, I like Raph.
Yeah.
And I like Donnie more now, and I like Michelangelo more now. So I'm kind of stuck in this like middle zone. My favorite turtle is in flux. Maybe we'll have to revisit it in our recap.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I'm down for that.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah, we'll see if I've developed an opinion by then.
Mm-hmm. My final word, we could have more words, but my final word for the 2007 movie, and kind of the Turtles in general, the context of where they came from as explicitly a joke, a reference to something else, and where they've gotten, now they're so pervasive in media. Am I using that word right, pervasive?
I would say so.
Yeah. There's an instinct that I know I've had, and some people have too, that their new storylines are like overly silly, and that the original comic was like very gritty and bloody. And it was incredibly gritty, incredibly bloody, and it was goofy as heck. It was ridiculous. It made no sense. Their second or third big story arc, they get teleported to space by space triceratops. They are dropped into a space arena with space ESPN announcers. They kill a bunch of space gladiators and then kidnap the space triceratops prime minister. They fight off the space police using laser guns and then teleport home.
Whoa.
Do they keep the laser guns?
I don't know. So that's the level of bonkers that the Turtles have always been from the very beginning. And so the 2007 movie is perfect because it perfectly captures the level of bonkers that the Turtles have always been, while also taking them extremely seriously.
Yeah.
It does make it land better in my mind because I was very thrown at first when it was like the opening, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, also 3,000 years ago, a Mesoamerican conqueror, his 4 best friends, 13 beasts. I was like, what? And then Triceratops, space, ESPN, gladiatorial combat laser guns make a lot more sense.
Yeah. I don't really have a desire to watch any other TMNT movies except for the newest one because I heard it's really good. But I do really want to go back and read the comics again because, oh boy, what a throwback.
You showed me a panel from the earliest days. Their masks were all the same color.
Their masks were all red. The only way you could tell them apart was their weapons, which is incredibly confusing.
Yeah.
Or just like kind of where they're placed in the frame and they're like referencing each other. You're like, I guess that one's Donatello. But also their personalities weren't very well defined at first because, again, the first story is just a vengeance quest. So they're not really like goofing around or anything. They're not really teenagers. But even early on, like Michelangelo was always being goofy and stuff. And it is mentioned that like, oh, you have the nunchucks because you are the goofiest and the nunchucks are the hardest to use. So it needs to teach you discipline. That's why I gave you the nunchucks. It's me, Splinter. And then like Donatello, I'm pretty sure all of Donatello's Does Machines personality comes from that one shot of him helping Casey with a truck.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure that's where that all comes from. Because
They're
that's
like,
also
he's
in the
smart.
comics.
He should do technology.
Yeah, because when they're searching for like personality traits to like put on these turtles, they're like, he's touching a machine. He likes those now.
He's smart.
He's smart. But the Raph and Leo conflict, that was always there from the very beginning. That's like the strongest turtle story arc. That's why they keep retelling it over and over and over again.
Yeah, I was like, it's definitely one of the most repeated. I mean, they're siblings, so they're always going to be at odds with each other, especially if they have different ways of approaching things.
It's the most evocative way you can tell this story.
I can only imagine how many fanfics there are out there just explicitly based off of the dynamic between Leonardo and Raphael.
Yeah, probably.
I would imagine, just because of how long Turtles
So
has been
much
going. And
angsty, like, family drama.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for, actually.
Yeah.
The family drama. I don't care. They can fight, whatever, but I want to know the pain of being a sibling. Okay.
the emotions, the turmoil.
Yeah.
The turtle
Turtle-moil.
Well, thank you so much for letting me force you to watch these movies, Michael. And I'm so glad to know you had such a big connection to the Turtles, Victoria.
Yeah.
Especially the 2007 movie,
Love
which
that
is the
movie.
best one. And I like it so much. And it's so good. And they're so edgy. And the plot's not great. But everything else is great. And that's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah. 3 out of 10 doctors agree. It's a great movie. That's the Rotten Tomatoes score.
Oh, really?
I think it's like
dang.
a 36 or something.
Oh,
It's not great.
Aw, but I loved it as
I
a
remember
kid,
it being
and I love
like
it now.
so advertised, and like everyone, everyone in 2007 in my 7th grade class saw it and was like, "Yo, it's so cool!"
Also, there was a video game adaptation of it that was like a 3D brawler, like open world 3D brawler.
Whoa.
Turtles games are awesome. There's never been a bad TMNT game. They're all
Ooh.
fantastic, and that's really where you learn which is your favorite turtle because Leo has the biggest range because of his swords.
Oh, yeah.
And Michelangelo has a shortest range, and so you kind of like don't ever want to be him because he can't hit the ninjas as well.
Yeah, that's fair. I probably would struggle with that. I'm not very good at playing close range characters.
But Mikey can fly because he
Okay.
can spin the nunchucks, and that's how physics works.
Yeah.
Mm.
Maybe one day I'll play a TMNT game.
Yeah.
When we do
Are they
our
on like
episode,
DS or anything?
The one I played a lot was at a friend's house on GameCube.
Oh.
I don't know if but there's a brand new one that's like a side-scrolly. The one I played a lot was a side-scrolly like pixel brawler, and there's a new one that just came out that's an homage to that style
Ooh,
that I haven't looked at yet, but it seems really good.
Okay.
So they're out there
nice.
in the sewers eating pizza,
Yeah.
just a lot of pizza.
I just remembered going back to another reason why Michelangelo is a great character. There's a line in the 2007 movie when Winters like falls to the ground. April or someone shouts Winters, and Michelangelo in the background is like more like falls. And then Donnie, or I think it's Donnie, he's like, Mikey, you remember what we talked about? And it's so like it made me laugh so hard. I was just like, that's so good though.
The banter's great.
It's so good.
It's fun listening. It's just fun listening to them
Yeah.
riff.
They actually employ a lot of background conversations for world building in this movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good stuff.
Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving us a comment with your thoughts and a rating. It really helps us out. You can also share your thoughts with us or suggestions for what we should cover next at our email, nostalgiaclubpodcast@gmail.com, or our Instagram, which is @nostalgiaclubpodcast. And we also have our MouseKnight Studios social media if you want to follow along on our other shows. That's @MouseKnight Studios on Instagram, Tumblr, Blue Sky.
Listen to Ghost Inspector.
Ghost Inspector.
Listen to Ghost Inspector. Ghost Inspector. Ghost Inspector. Ghost Inspector.
Also, if you enjoyed this show and you'd like to continue supporting more episodes like this, please consider donating to us on Ko-fi.
Because streaming services are expensive.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the reason.
So's everything else.
So's everything else. Help us buy eggs! Eggs!
Any last thoughts about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
You ever seen images of those little like brain aliens that are like sit in robot bodies that kind of look like MODOK, like little tiny MODOKs
Yeah.
from the comics?
Oh.
They're there.
Is that
They-
the source?
I think are like Baxter's evil masterminds. I think. I'm trying to remember. They're like aliens and they're like, we want something. I don't know. Anyway. The point is, I read an article that was like, these guys are weird and they shouldn't be in the Turtles. And I'm like, no, they should be there. They're allowed to be there.
Yeah, this has reawakened my interest in the world of TMNT, so I will...
Weird world
Yeah.
of TMNT.
Well, until next time, I do have the script for the 2007 TMNT movie. It opens exterior South American jungle. Post 9/11.
We look around. The Twin Towers are nowhere to be seen.
Scene 2, the Foot Clan.
Michael, I think you should write the next TMNT movie.
Oh gosh.
It's all just like various like tasteful and untasteful references to the fact that 9/11 happened.
Gosh.
Hey, until next time, Cowabunga, dudes.
Cowabunga, dudes.
Cowabunga, dude.